from something or an interpretation or something like that, it's probably within a probability of being 85% right. And so this is why you have to aggregate other people's experiences and things like that, and then you come up with something that maybe is, actionable, because 85% is not actionable for a lot of people.
Well,
and so this is the thing that you have to be a little bit wary of, because of the fact that everybody, I would say, has that sort of thing where they'd say at some point in their life they know the phone's going to ring and it's going to be mom, or this is going to happen. They have that sort of feeling in their DNA that this is going to happen, or I've had deja vu or something like that.
I will say it seems to affect younger people. I'm talking about from 3 to 7 years old. Seem to be more adapt to that than us older people for some reason.
Yeah, well, I don't necessarily know if that's true. It's just that our brains are ahead of our initial reaction. It's kind of an interesting thing where, I used to, when I was teaching, I used to do this little trick with my students, because, like when your wife asks you, sometimes if she says to you sometimes, well, Carrie, let's go out and get some dinner or whatever. And you'd say, okay, well, what do you want to eat? Or, I don't know. What do you want to eat? And and then you have to go through the big back and forth about. Well, I
got a cure for that. It's called McDonald's at that point.
But actually, what works to a lot of people is if you say, well, listen, if you did know the answer to what you want, what would it be? You see. Because that's, and then the initial, and then if you can catch them before their mind starts to realize that you just kind of threw a little tweak at their brain, spit out exactly what they want.
Yeah.
And so it is a funny thing that in a lot of ways our brain is very sort of complex in a way that I don't think we even understand, going from the reptilian brain to the other parts of the brain and everything else. And so, we don't know all the capabilities of the mind. And I think that's one of those things that maybe we'll find out. But, on the other hand, I sort of think, if our brains were as powerful as I think that they could be, then, that's a scary thought too,
Yeah, it could be. Now, I got to ask you a question.
Yeah.
I get the distinct impression that you saw a gray.
Probably, yeah. If it were to happen to my child, and they came out of the woods and explained that to me, that's what I would say. That's what I would say, and. And like I said, but I've had this sort of strange, weird life that makes sort of, it kind of, it's a funny thing, because they always say that, people who see leprechauns or whatever are really lucky people. And I mean, I don't know if I've always had good luck, but from a standpoint of that, weird stuff happens to me at strange times, and, so, I can start a conversation with somebody I don't know, and next thing you know, it turns out that they're, knows this other person that knows this other person, and then you end up at some great party. I mean, I'm sure you've done that.
Oh, yeah. Have you ever checked to see if you had any implants or anything? I mean, the reason why I'm saying that, because I'm going to have in the next 2 weeks a guest on. It was Dr. Lear's first patient that, had an implant that Dr. Lear removed. And then, I think about Whitney, being through all these years with grays and implant, in his ear and all that stuff that, a lot of people have seen grays and stuff like in what you described, were either abducted where they lost some time frame, or they got an implant. Have you ever? I've never.
Well, for various reasons, I've never gone through hypnotherapy, hypnoregression. But that's because I don't feel like I could really want to do that in case somebody asks me this question I shouldn't answer. But, but as far as no scans for things, other than that, no. No, I've never even thought about it. It's
now I implanted that in your brain. Now you won't think about that till about 2:30 in the morning. You know that.
Well, you see what this is it, right? I mean, there is a certain amount of in all this, you can really convince yourself that I guess my point of the matter, I've always felt like this is so beyond my control that I'm just going to roll with it. You know what I mean? I just don't know. I don't know what else to say about these different types of things. I try not to get overly obsessed about things, but I'm sort of a very, very, very avid reader, and if I start to go down a certain by what, Thursday, if you call me back, I'll know everything there is to know about implants.
Okay, probably by tomorrow, knowing you so far. But like I do here on I think you've listened to me enough. I keep an open mind. And that's the whole point. Like I said, I might not agree with what you say, but I'm not. I how can I say it? I have done this enough in the past that I do it because, one, I do believe in the paranormal. Okay, and I want a good outlet where people can call and say what. Their stories and, all their things. And I mean, then you out there can make a decision if you believe it or not. I mean, that's how it is. And that's what I plan to do with the show. And, I'm going to ask you if you want to come back in June, and we can talk about more interesting things, because what I find talking with you is refreshing, because I don't have to keep a 2-hour conversation going that is only 10 minutes long. Yeah.
Well, like I said, it's a funny thing. Back in the olden days, I used to, I did this on a smaller scale in Scotland, and it's like two old friends. I'm talking. I've never talked to you before today. We've been texting back and forth a few times just about some different things. But, what is nice is that, we're on the same groove, and, whether and that's what's nice. You're a genuine guy. And really what it comes down to is that if we disagree on something, that's okay, because I know you're doing it from a standpoint of being genuine, and that's all you can ever say about anybody. You only ever get upset with a guest or with somebody that you're dealing with or somebody you're interviewing, whenever they're not telling the truth.
Well, I've had 3 networks in the last 9 months approach me about taking the show national. One is a huge company. I won't even go into what happened. I'm not the one that killed it. It was a relative that killed that one. I don't know why, but I can tell you off air on that one. But okay, the other one was basically a motorcycle radio network that has a couple 100,000 listeners. I'm a biker. I've been a biker for 40 some years. Okay, so but what I can say is I've been approached by 3 different networks to do a talk show and take it.
Right.
One of them would have put me on 113 stations immediately,
right,
which is not bad. Okay, but the problem was
that's 112 more than I've ever been on.
Okay, but here was the issue. Okay, one is I can choose my own. I'm retired. Okay, I don't need the income. Okay, that's why you hear one commercial in my show. When I go to 3 hours here in June, you might hear a commercial every hour. So you might hear 3 commercials during a 3-hour show. I want to give content. I don't want to spend on a 3-hour show only putting out 2 hours and an hour worth of commercials and junk. But the whole point is, one, they would choose the guests, not me. I would have virtually no say who the guest was. All three of them, the phone calls would, because I'm going to start taking phone calls in June. They would all be screened. Okay, so I couldn't even, I believe like Art Bell did. Okay, you let somebody call up. If you want them off the air, you feel they need to, you hit the dump button, and that's the end of them. Okay, I want it to be spontaneous. And by me choosing my own guest, okay, I'm not picking somebody up because I'm told I have to. And the whole point of the show is I want it to be fun for me. I enjoy doing this. I don't want the pressure at my age, at 66 years old, to have to conform to a network. I don't want to do that.
Right.
Now, I am entertaining. I'm in talks with a couple radio stations. I don't mind, a few stations picking up the show. I don't care. But I'm not going to have some corporation telling me how I have to run my show. It's not going to happen. I won't do it. I'd hang up my headphones before that. Right.
Well, I think that you actually are doing people a service because of the fact that, it is basically, 3 hours of information. Where can you get that? You of this high of this high quality production. I'm not saying that. I'm not putting myself in that category or saying where can you get 3 hours of me? But but like I said, it is interesting that it's well produced. It's the quality of the output to the stream is really, really good, and and it's not harsh to listen to and everything like that. And that's basically 99% of what most people ever care about. Not understanding that you and I understand that last 1% where you just plug in the microphone and everything just magic happens because you're just a funny guy, and everybody, it's like back in the day, whenever I used to be a DJ, and then the Apple iPod came out, and then you didn't need DJs anymore,
No.
I'll be my own DJ. And then that's whenever you start playing Freebird at somebody's wedding reception.
Well, it was the same way, honestly. I remember back in the photography business around 2000, I told the owners of the business, I said, look, film cameras are going to die. Here's what's going to happen. They're going to improve the digital cameras every year. It's going to get to the point where somebody's going to buy a digital camera, take a picture of a wedding. It's going to be almost as good as a professional photographer because they can go into all these editing softwares and make it look good. And, you're going to find that film cameras are going to die. Well, what happened is a lot of people started buying digital cameras. Film cameras died, right? Everybody virtually, owns a digital camera, and they classify themselves as a professional photographer. Let's face it, that's what's happened. The same way, you go on eBay, right? You buy a $20 microphone. You go plug it into your USB port. You go on to some service on the internet, right? And you start a radio show. And I went to school to become a DJ. I learned from it was Charlie Brown and John Maynard. They were the top DJs in the Seattle, Tacoma, LA area back in the 70s. They taught me personally how to do a radio show. Okay? And content is everything. Yeah. Okay. That's like when I decided to do this. I talked to Art Bell. He felt the same thing. He thought terrestrial radio is going to die. And he figured that the internet is the new wave of broadcasters. But he sat there and told me when I said, I'm going to do this, he said, well, Gary, don't start out cheap. Buy the right equipment. And you know what? I'm sitting here with a server rack with a whole bunch of equipment. I don't know if you've ever seen any of my pictures I post, but you
you do. You have a very impressive rack.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I need to lose some weight. No, but I just recently I was renting a server for $300 a month. I was putting out the same broadcast any of the major radio stations like Cairo